we're in the world of sport, but I think we think of artists and people within that world as like super creative, and some of them will be like that, but some of them will be very process driven as to how they create their art. And I think you see it the same in teams, and you'll see very creative, intuitive, almost like want to figure it out as they go athletes. And then you've got athletes that are, I need a plan, I do this and I do that then, and I'm going to do that then, and this is my preparation. And then you've got these two sides of the continuum in teams, and they all have to work together to solve this problem. But they're very different types of personality. So that dichotomy that I first came across in Zen and the art of motorcycle maintenance was really useful for me to help change my perspective on that and appreciate that how different people see the world and how there's different ways to solve the problem, and there's beauty in all of it. This idea of creativity, I think, can be as much applied to the artful, creative, the classic idea as it can to this minute design or some piece of technology, and how we do that. And that's all creative, I think. It's just different appetites for it, maybe. So I think, and then I'm linking back around to people in terms of not being open to that feedback loop. There are definitely personalities who to question why we do this, why are we doing this, why are we doing this, why are we doing this. There'd be personalities who would be more inclined to that, and people who are much more just let me carry on my process. This is my process. Let me do my process. If I'm doing my process, everything's okay. The world is right. It's quite interesting from a coaching perspective, being in environment, especially if you're leading departments and stuff and that. And it's something I've definitely thought about when I've done that, is the different types of personalities, and being aware that as a person who's going to ask why and probably look to change things because it seems like it's the right time to change things, you're going to particularly upset the people who really like their process. So you've got to be sensitive to the idea that they're seeing the problem differently to how you're seeing the problem. And I think that's something to consider in those environments as a coach.
Well, that nicely leads into my next question, because how would you change your approach when working someone that's very much process driven to someone that's more romantically creative driven? How differently do you work with those types of personalities? Because you've worked in elite sport for well over 10 years now. So has your approach to these athletes changed and really matured and got the best out of them?
Yeah, probably. I probably would be subtly different. I find the whole process of coaching such a personable thing. It's very much I want to connect with the person regardless. I really enjoy that about coaching. I really enjoy trying to understand that person and figure out what it is that motivates them, that they're drawn to. What do they like doing? Why do they like it? I probably have to be more conscious in a way of when I'm working with more process driven athletes in some ways, because that I'm not that nature. I'm more of a, why are we doing this? I'm happy to walk in one day and it'd be one way, and walk in the next day and it can be another way. And I'll be fairly okay with that, because I'll just be like, as long as I know where we're trying to solve the problem to, I'm fairly open with how we get to that. But in other ways, I don't think, I think I do. I've clicked with those athletes as well, because one thing I like to do is talk about why. So if we're doing something, I wouldn't be like, we're just doing this, but this is why we're doing it. And I find that those process driven athletes actually really want to know why. They want to orientate it within their process. So they really want to know why we're doing this. And as long as there's a why, then they seem to be, they get behind it. Well, my experience in teams is sometimes that the more open athletes are the ones that I didn't connect with initially, but that's like, even though it made the most sense that we would connect, it's just that they're more like, okay, I don't really care about S&C. I don't care about all this stuff. I just care about playing the sport. So I'm not really going to invest much into it. But then actually after years of working with teams, they're the athletes who I've become almost like close friends with, because you are very, once they realize that you see the world in a little bit of a different way to just having to lift weights, and this is what lifting weights is about. It's about, no, we're trying to help you solve the problem of your sport. And then they obviously love that as well, because then that's their why.